So let's have a little fun and discover and talk about some of the myths of online learning. And this is where you're going to be able to participate through the poll. We have Jennifer who's going to help us with reading the results. So we encourage your participation. But the first thing we want you to know is that when in regards to myths of online learning, it's a question that I ask, and when many have asked me, and this is the main thing I want to make sure that I impart on when it comes to online education. The only difference that a online course and an in-person course should have is this: the modality in which the course is offered. The goal of an online course is to mirror a ground course. It shouldn't be less than, it shouldn't be more than. The goal is that the learning objectives and the student learning outcomes should be the same. It's just the modality in which is being offered to reach those outcomes. So let's talk about our first myth. We want you to put into the chat, okay? And we want you to participate. There are going to be some questions that I'm going to ask you, and then you can indicate whether it's a myth, reality, depends, or not sure. And then I'll ask Jennifer to please read out what we have, and I'll give you about 20 seconds, so we won't be long, but let's go ahead and see what your thinking has been and what we can kind of learn from this experience. So myth number one, online courses are impersonal. Online courses are impersonal. So I want to know from you, your opinion. Is that a myth? Is that a reality? It depends, or you're just not sure. So we'll spend about a few seconds on that just to see what we come up with. And then I'm asked Jennifer, when you're ready to share some results and talk to us, please. And then I'll be able to show you what research says. Okay? All right. Online courses are impersonal. All right. Let's go ahead and see what research tells us that. If you're there, Jennifer, please share out.
Sure. So it looks like 61% of our audience, our attendees, believe that it depends. 34% of our attendees believe it's a myth, and 3% find that to be a reality.
Wow, wow, wow. That's great. Great feedback, great feedback. And I'm glad for the mixed reviews. But the answer is it depends. It depends. So this is where online courses can be made personal. It's up to the instructor and the way that the course is developed. Okay, okay. So even the best developed course needs a active instructor in order to make it personal. I can have the most active, best online instructor, but if the course is poorly developed, it becomes impersonal. So some things to be mindful of. Here are some things to make it personal. First, make sure that you post your profile and your welcome in your syllabus and share some things about you personally. Let the student invite them into your world, and it allows them a chance to learn you, not as though they're speaking to a robot on the camera or in a platform. So make it personal, and don't be afraid to share personal things about yourself. Engage. This is so important. Engage in discussions with learners. There are so many complaints that I've heard on how it's impersonal because the instructor does not respond to posts, or they take so long to get back. So it is not that the online course and the methodology is not a good, it's just that the activity of the instructor is not up to speed where it should be. I always encourage to create short videos. In my course that I teach, one week I'll give them an announcement at the beginning of the week in text. The next following week I'll create a video and give it to them in video. So creating short videos really brings you into the classroom, and they get to see you. And I say, when you're creating these short videos, don't try to be perfect. The mistakes, the bumbles, that's a part of you. So there's no need to worry about editing and making it perfect. Show them you and create short videos to help promote engagement. All right. And it's important that you are available through synchronous and asynchronous, and that's virtual office hours. Have that in your course where they can reach you. Course messaging, course email. These are all ways that can promote a personal interaction experience. All right, so good. So let's see. Myth number 2, there is no interaction in online courses. Myth number 2, let's go and open up the chat room and let's see what people have to say about this one. There is no interaction in online courses. All right. We'll give you about another 10 seconds there as we allow people to think about that for a minute, chime in, and I think we will be able to go ahead and engage in this great conversation about interaction. All right. Jennifer, when you're ready, I'm ready when you are.
All right. So it looks like for our attendees, 52% selected depends, 42% selected myth, and 4% said not sure.
Wow, I love it. I love it. It's really good. Really good. Um, the answer is, guys, it really, again, it depends. It depends. Those that had a great experience in online education, they're doing it right. It's easy to say that that is a myth because we're doing it right. Our students are engaged. There is interaction, but those that have not had that experience due to whatever reason or not, it can be clearly seen that it's just a automatic course that students go in and they just kick out like a meal each week, an assignment. When there's no engagement, it does feel that way, and it could be very well true. But it depends, because the myth that online courses are limited to the learner and their computer depends on the design of the course once again. And this is where you begin to get the interaction. You build it in. You got team projects, meeting using Zoom. We are a big fan of Zoom at the University of San Diego, and I know many of you are. GoToMeetings and all these other great voice over IP tools that we now have. We got virtual breakout rooms. It's great and always recommended that if you're in a large class, do the breakout rooms. Allow small group interaction. A lot of times, if they are in big rooms, large rooms, students have a tendency to try to hide. When you put them in small groups, they're more readily forced in a way to participate. So you got wikis and threaded discussions, which is really some of the biggest tools that online education. The threaded discussions are one of the most powerful. I want to take a moment about threaded discussions. These are one of the most powerful learning tools, not just in classroom, but for also the in class. For online. The reason why a threaded discussion allows the student to reflect and to think about what they want to share. Okay. Now, if it's just speaking in the classroom, it's the first time that's coming out of my mind, out of my mouth. I'm hearing this for the first time too. But if I'm able to write and I'm able to put it in a threaded discussion, the amount of thought that goes into it, and I'm able to even research, I'm able to do many things that will and often produce a better response than in class. All right. So just a thought that I want to leave with you when it comes to threaded discussions and what that looks like. And the instructor and the students can engage in any of these collaborative activities, and students can also engage with each other. It's important that your university, your school have synchronous tools like Zoom, GoToMeetings, where students can talk to each other. One-on-one with the instructor is great, but leave those times and opportunities for student, because it's going to produce collaboration and teamwork. All right. And remember, as in any course, the quality of the interaction is dependent on the background and the preparation of the learners and instructors. We have to prepare our students. This is a way of learning. Whether they go back, they open the schools back up, many of these type of hybrid opportunities are going to remain. The teacher's going to need training. We need investment from the top, government administration coming down to the districts at the school levels that will be able to prepare instructors and students for this modality because of the growth. And what many have found, it really has saved our education system in many ways. All right. So there can be significant and robust participation and interaction. So we can make it that way. All right. Let's go into myth number 3. Learners don't participate. This is a good one. Learners don't participate. This is a real good one. Now, this is going to be um, kind of tricky, right? Let's open up the polls and let's see what research tells us based on what we found out. So, give you about another 5 to 7 seconds here. We're going to kind of move it along so I can make sure I get through and that I have time for any questions that you may have at the end. All right. So, let's go ahead, Jennifer, and let's share out. What do we have?
All right. So it looks like 78% of our attendees selected depends, 21%
Mm-hmm.
selected it's a myth, and
Mm-hmm.
0% selected reality and not sure.
Wow, that's great. Now you can see we kind of think like we get in the pattern. We're saying like, wow, it looks like if we just get depends on it's really dependent upon the instructor, the student, the platform. So a lot of this really is contingent upon the participants, the stakeholders that are involved in the process. So it which shows that there is so many possibilities that can take place and that it does happen if we make it happen. So the answer to that one, I had to do 2 answers for that one. I first said it's a myth, and then I said it depends. And so let's share out on what research says to try to help us formulate on why I put that. Okay, there may be more participation because of the fear of speaking in front of others is removed. That's why it makes it a myth. If I'm sitting in the back of a classroom in the classroom and often I'm not called upon to speak or I'm not forced to speak, guess what? If I'm not one of those students with the hand raising, always trying to be the one in the classroom, I'm not going to respond or say anything. But in an online course, that cannot happen. In order to get a grade, in order to be able to succeed, you have to participate. So, in many ways, online learning and an online class promotes more interaction and participation. And often the online classroom creates a safe environment where the social cultural barriers are diminished and it's easier to share ideas. Some students are worried about what they have on their clothes and they're being bullied for some one reason, teased, or they don't fit in an in group. So a lot of times classrooms become a very, very traumatic experience. But in an online class, some of those barriers are removed and they feel more active and they want to participate because they don't have those barriers that they face in the classroom. Additionally, learners can become more freely engaged in virtual discussions and are held accountable for their interaction. So, this is a good way to hold them accountable. All right. And then I want to move to myth number 4. We thank you for that one. Let's go to myth number 4. Myth number 4 is this: online courses take less participation time. Now, I've heard a lot about this one. So let's take about 10 seconds on this one. Let me gather your thoughts on online courses take less participation time. This is a good one. All right. All right. So let's go ahead. Let's open up the polls and tell me what we have. I'd love to hear the answers on this one.
All right. So it looks like 50% of our attendees selected it depends,
Mm-hmm.
16% selected it's a reality, and 16%
Mm-hmm.
selected it's a myth, and then the rest of the 16% said not sure.
Great, great. Awesome. Great, great. Well, guys, this one is another dual answer that really is. First of all, I'm going to say that it can be a myth, but I'm going to share that it can be this. It is a myth in many ways because when it comes down to online courses, research has found that generally an online course will take as much. So I'm going to say the same or maybe more time than the traditional classroom courses. All right. And these are reasons why. that we may find at. Now, depending on the type of online learning, the learner may have to do more individual assimilation and research and to engage with others, meaning that often online learners are in a space where they have to find the answers. The answers are not given to them. So they'll do a lot of web research. They'll do a lot of videos to watch. So this research can become a time consuming. But this is one of the reasons why some studies report that online learners are better learners or retain information better because of the amount of research on their own that they do and put into their work. They're not giving the answer. This is promotes a strong learning opportunity. If students are never challenged, a lot of times they never learn. So there has to be a certain amount of challenge for students to actually learn. All right. Now, but you can save time. This is why I said it could be a little bit if both answers on one side and the other side. However, there's no commuting. So look how much time you're saving. When I lived in New York City, I had to get on the train, and that was an hour ride, and then another hour. Then if the train got crowded, it stopped. It was an hour and a half too. So when I was logging in from home, I saved an hour, at least 2.5 hours of commute time. So that's one of the advantages. And it's important that you know that for an online course, learners can expect to spend at least 9 to 12 hours of coursework per week. Every one unit equals at least 3 hours of work. So in a 3 unit course, you can expect to spend at least 9 to 12. But once you get a flow and you get going, it doesn't seem as time consuming. All right. So myth number 5, online courses are less demanding. I've heard this a lot. This is some say that, hey, these courses are just, ways for students to earn easy grades. And we feel like we're giving away the grades. They're not challenging. They're not rigorous. So let's open up and see what we have. I want to try to give us less time on the poll so we can continue on into this great presentation so I can continue to give you all the information I came prepared with today. So whenever you're ready, Jennifer, I would love for you to go ahead and share what does our attendees say regarding the myth number 5. Online courses are less demanding.
All right.
All right.
So it looks like most of us, 53% of us, find it to be a myth. 40% of us believe it depends. And then 6% of us think it's reality.
Wow. Wow. That's great. That's great. That's a great, great survey amount. I'm going to call this one a myth. When it's developed right, that's why the depends will play a part. But when it's developed right, online courses are definitely not less demanding. All right. As with any online course, we really have the same performance expectations, whether it's in the classroom. We want to have the same requirements and assignments that we expect in a face-to-face course. And the difference is supposed to be only the modality, not the content or the rigor. What I've seen that those that have taught on the ground, what they love to do is stack their course when they have an online course that they took from the ground course because they feel it's not as rigorous or not as demanding. And so they add extra stuff. Now, all of a sudden, the online course becomes much harder course, and then the ground course is less rigorous. I'll take the ground course. So stacking the course because you think it's less rigorous, not it. They have the same learning outcomes. You just have to find the ways in which technology and the modality meets that outcome, and we are able to do that through the technology. All right. All right. Let's go to number 6. Anyone can take an online course and be successful online. Now, this one should be pretty easy, right? Let's open up about 10 seconds on this one. I think this one should be a pretty easy answer. And I think that most participants will agree, right? All right. So, Jennifer, when you are ready, please share.
All right. I think we're getting the answers in soon. There we go. All right. 66% of us find that to be a myth, and 33% find it to be reality.
Wow, wow, that's great. That's great. That's good. I'm glad for such a mixed review. But I'm going to say, guys, that is a myth, okay? Because it is not uh, the way of learning or teaching for some, okay? Let me share on why I say that. All right. Now, for one, for online course, it takes course requires discipline, self-manage, and self-direction. And many times, these are the things that required for success in an online course. And those that have not have good self-management, time management skills, or self-directed and motivated, often this course modality becomes an experience that we feel it is less rigorous, or the course doesn't promote learning experiences because of our lack of these tools: discipline, self-manage, and self-direction. Now, keep in mind, it also takes that in class. These are the things that require, but you have a classroom around you to help make sure you stay on track. So as an independent learner, you have to have that in you. And so those are skill sets that research shares, that those that have self-management and self-direction, they are the strongest online learners. All right. And it also requires the ability to function with more autonomy and self-directedness and willingness to ask for help when needed. All right. And learners must be active, taking responsibility for their own learning. So we have to be active and take the responsibility. No one's going to be in the class telling you, you got to do this, you got to do this. You have to be motivated and take action for your own learning. All right. So, last one. And this is a good one. We had to end with this one. Myth number 7 says it is easier to cheat. All right. It is easier to cheat. We would love to hear you chime in on this one, because this one is a good one. All right. And we'll give you about another 5 to 7 seconds for you to give us what you got. And then Jennifer is going to go ahead and share what we have. Right. I'm ready when
All
you
right,
are, Jennifer.
they are coming in. All
All
right.
right.
So our audience said depends, 41%. It's a myth, 27%, reality, 17%, and not sure, 13%.
Wow. Wow. Love the great mixed reviews. Great mixed reviews. Hey, I'm gonna be honest, and I'm gonna say, guess what? It is possible. And it can be easier in some instances to cheat. But the answer is depends. So I'm going to go with that answer as the mo, even though many of these answers that you gave are fit the criteria for yes, but it's up to us as instructors and how we administer education to be able to prevent cheating. So there are some tips that I can share to make it less easier to cheat. All right. And it's this important that here are some possible solutions that I want to offer you. All right. Make sure students understand the policies of academic integrity and what constitutes cheating. You must first educate the students of what cheating is. That means that you have to show them we're paraphrasing and how the use of taking citations and others people work. So it's important you put them in an online course at the very beginning of the program, and that you also make sure that there's an academic integrity clause that they sign off on. And that then begins to educate the student, so that way they don't say when they get caught, well, I didn't know that. So it starts there. All right. The next thing that we can do is check for plagiarism using these plagiarism software. At our university, we use SafeAssign, and SafeAssign is a plagiarism software that it is not meant to bust or catch students for cheating. What it's meant to is to deter students from cheating. All right. These tools are not meant, oh, we got you, we got you. No, it's an idea that students know that there's a mechanism or tool that will monitor the work. When they submit and SafeAssign, it'll tell you a percentage on how much similarities of the work. And often, sometimes when you see that, it doesn't mean that the student cheated. What it means is for the instructor to check the work. And a lot of the correlations that you may see can be just simply the student didn't know how to paraphrase or how to cite. So those type of tools are very useful in programs and online programs. And then we even have proctor exam tools like respondents monitoring. So this is when you have webcams that are set up in the student's home while they're testing, and that the monitor can read if eye movement is too fast, or if they're talking to someone and the student must look straight ahead or be able to see if they're cheating using other material. So it's material like that that's available that help with the possibility of cheating. So it's not a pure science, but these are things that will help. So when you're using test pools in the built-in learning management system, it's always good to randomize the test. Never have the same test for every student. And the learning management systems are so smart, they'll be able to do that for you on its own. And then one of the things as educators, we have to do better about how we administer education, how it's being done. COVID has taught us a lot of things about how many uh, flaws we have in our education practices and systems. So these are some of the things that we have to learn that should stay, is that student projects and papers should be submitted in smaller drafts. And when you work with the student along the way and you see the work along the way, it's easier to identify if it's their work or not. Okay? And give assignments that require students' personal reflection. When you assign the assignments that relate to the student, make them connect to the student experiences, and now personal reflection is what is a part of the assignment. It's hard to use someone else's life to personally reflect about yours. So you'll know whether or not it's their work or not. Okay. And the last thing I want to make sure that you keep mindful of when you're thinking about cheating is chunk and utilize formative assessment rather than summative. Smaller exercises, smaller videos, smaller assignments, but they're chunked, they're segmented. And this produces a way of students building their work as a portfolio or a project that really leads to learning instead of requiring a whole summative assignment. Okay, so those are just some of the things I'm glad to share with you. I hope that you've learned something from these practices and the myths that I've shared.